Hello everybody, and first of all, really sorry not to be able to attend the AGM in person this year. I'm actually broadcasting my Times radio show. You can see the branding behind me from the Eden project in Cornwall. So I am dealing with rural matters to an extent, as I'm attending a gathering called Anthropy 22, which is putting together a group of visionaries looking at ways in which to make the future brighter, and heaven knows we certainly need that. In fact, I'm going to be talking to, I think, two ex-CPRE chairs here at this event, which just goes to show how rural matters are really at the heart of some of the future vision for this country that we need to see. But before we talk about future and vision and good things, permacrisis has been chosen by Collins Dictionary as their word of the year for 2022. Permacrisis is defined as an extended period of instability and insecurity. Collins said it chose the word as it sums up quite succinctly how truly awful 2022 has been for so many people, and I'm afraid I have to concur. Certainly since our last AGM a year ago, it does seem like the UK and the world has lurched from one crisis to another with no let-up in between. Brexit and COVID have affected us all in recent years in different ways, but in 2022 we could also unfortunately add war in Ukraine, energy price rises, the cost of living crisis, a tanking economy and political instability to our list of collective woes. On top of it all, we had the hottest summer that most of us can remember, and the climate crisis really began to feel up close and personal. Somewhere in the middle of all of this, the Queen, who was patron of CPRE for 70 years, passed away, and there was a brief period of calm reflection and a realization that things would never be the same again. We watched the queue with fascination and pride, and we tried to understand what it would mean to live in a Carolian age rather than being Elizabethans. Incidentally, Carolian is another of the top 10 words of the year, according to Collins Dictionary. Then came the September mini-budget. The ban on fracking was lifted, and we heard about the government's new investment zones. These have been described by CPRE's Tom Fyans as deregulation on steroids and pose a real threat to our nature and protected landscapes, all in the name of growth. We were back at the permacrisis with a bang. Difficult times indeed, but difficult times are the birthplace of the greatest campaigns, and now is the time to shout loud that our countryside is in crisis and rural voices need to be heard. CPRE itself was born in 1926, just about around when I was born. No, not really, but almost. When people realised that unregulated development could destroy the countryside of the England that so many had fought for in the trenches of the First World War. CPRE brought together movements like the Women's Institute and the National Trust, and they spoke with one voice for better rural planning and the right development in the right place. Almost 100 years ago, the Health Minister, Neville Chamberlain, addressed the inaugural meeting of CPRE by speaking out against the spoiling of undefiled countryside by ribbon development, describing it as the biggest aesthetic abomination facing rural England. In his words, besides being undignified, if not positively offensive, it is also uneconomical, wasteful and inconvenient. I almost tried to slip into Neville Chamberlain's voice there, which would definitely not have worked. Neville Chamberlain's words ring true today, of course, when we hear of short-sighted ideas like investment zones, allowing fracking and weakening of our environmental regulations. If ministers want to see booming high streets and more money in people's pockets, we need to see investment in genuinely affordable homes and thriving communities, not trying to bypass the democratic planning system so that developers can cut down our woods and pour concrete over our fields. As CPRE members know, the planning system in England is already heavily skewed in favour of the developer. CPRE does not want to fossilise Somerset. We need more houses, we need thriving communities and better public transport. Importantly, we need genuinely affordable housing for local people, not more and expensive executive homes aimed at people downsizing from elsewhere in the UK. New houses should be built to the highest environmental standards, and we should also be investing in the energy efficiency of our existing leaky homes, mine certainly. At CPRE Somerset, our prime focus is on protecting the special character of the smaller historic villages and market towns, which are targeted by developers. Every week, we are out and about helping local communities who come to us for advice and support. At the moment in Somerset, the main thing holding back new house building is the fact that our internationally important wetland habitats are dangerously polluted. There's currently a moratorium on new house building until a way is found to reduce phosphate pollution on the Somerset levels. The pursuit of growth at all costs and the loosening of environmental regulation could cause even more damage. CPRE will do everything we can to campaign against further weakening of environmental standards, and we need you, our members and the general public to join us. The message is loud and clear. Sacrificing nature and the countryside is no answer to the challenges we face. As we did back in the 1920s, CPRE is working closely with many other organisations to get our message across. Just this week, CPRE, along with dozens of other green groups like RSPB and the Wildlife Trust, has made an official complaint to DEFRA as they missed the deadline to set key environmental targets. Their own deadline is past, and we are still kept waiting for a deposit return system to cut littering and plastic pollution. We are still kept waiting for reforms to how our finest protected landscapes like national parks and areas of outstanding natural beauty are protected, funded and managed. We are still kept waiting for clear targets on air and water quality. We won't accept this anymore, and we are proud to be around the table with all these other charities and environmental bodies. Together we are stronger. When fracking made a brief comeback this autumn, we quickly mobilised our members and got a petition up and running. We asked you to sign it and to write to your MPs, and you did, joined by thousands across the country. Thank you. Fracking was never going to reduce energy bills, and introducing a new fossil fuel gave off all the wrong signals in a climate crisis. Thankfully, it's been cast aside now and won't be making any more comebacks, hopefully. But there are bigger battles to fight all the time. The recent turmoil in government means we have no clear idea what planning reforms are going to be proposed, but we're monitoring all government announcements with bated breath for their implication for Somerset. Before we get too depressed though, I told you we're looking at new visions for the future here at the Eden Project in Cornwall. And so it seems a good time to mention that another of the top 10 words of the year, according to Collins' dictionary, is vibe shift. That's what we need. Actually, it's two words, I suppose. Vibe shift means a significant change in the prevailing atmosphere or culture. And that, I think, is what we're starting to see. Women, men, children are all coming together to secure a better future for this nation. And of course, the countryside matters in that future. I've mentioned that CPRE was born in 1926. So was the Queen. Another famous face born in that year is Sir David Attenborough, the national treasure that he is. He once said, "We have a finite environment, the planet. Anyone who thinks that you can have infinite growth in a finite environment is either a madman or an economist." He also said on a separate occasion, "The truth is the natural world is changing and we are totally dependent on that world. It provides our food, water and air. It is the most precious thing we have and we need to defend it." We have all had enough of living in a permacrisis. Let's continue to work together and demand nature-based solutions and greener, smarter ways to boost our rural economy and enrich rural lives. It is definitely the right time for a vibe shift.